Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the latest Esri National Security webinar series. Today's title is Managing Intelligence Operations. My name is Carl Walter. I'm the Industry Manager for National and Homeland Security here at Esri. And joining me today is Rob Fairstein, and Rob is a Solution Engineer also on our National Homeland Security team here at Esri. Our agenda for today's webinar: we will demonstrate the use of web maps and web applications to create secure, collaborative environments that replace paper and email-based workflows. We'll also show how the ArcGIS platform improves requests for information, RFI management, collection and asset management, and data product management. In addition to going through these scenarios, one of the things that I'd just like to share is this is not meant to replace existing systems that folks have for RFIs or for your intelligence requirements. It's meant to, if you have existing capabilities, to augment them by spatially enabling some of that information. For example, the location of where your intelligence requirements are coming from, or the location of where requests for information might include, or your spatial data affiliated with collection and asset management components that you have. So again, it's meant to augment. However, if you do not possess these capabilities today, we're going to show you some very quick, simple, easy ways through configuration of how to leverage the ArcGIS capability that you have for Intel requirements and RFI management. I'm going to turn this over now to Rob Fairstein, and Rob is going to go through a series of workflows. In between each workflow, we're going to ask you a series of questions that should only take you 15-30 seconds to respond to, and then we will show you those results as we go. And now we're going to turn it over to Rob Fairstein.
Hey, thank you, Carl. Well-communicated intelligence requirements, or IRs, are key to successful intelligence operations. IRs enable intel units to prioritize efforts, deploy assets, collect data, and leverage the right analyst and utilize the right analytical methodology to provide decision makers with intelligence. When I'm out in the field, I like to ask you guys to get a better understanding of you and your organizational challenges. Some of the questions I ask are, why are you working on that product? What decision does your product inform? What are your organization's intelligence priorities? Unfortunately, all too often these questions are met with blank stares from analysts. In addition, I'll ask some other questions like, how does your organization determine IRs? Can I see a list of your IRs? How do you provide a shared understanding of command priorities? How these questions are answered are indicative of the intel unit's integration into the organization's mission. There are lots of different techniques for managing IRs. You can get really expensive systems and software to do it, or a lot of organizations will use spreadsheets or whiteboards, and some just, good old sticky notes. But more often than not, there's a lack of a process and a system for managing IRs. So let's just take a quick look at how you can configure some maps in Portal or within ArcGIS relationship between the intel shop and decision makers. So what you're seeing here in the operations dashboard are all the active IRs for an organization. And so I can click on these individual IRs as they're highlighted on the map. In addition to being on the map, I'm getting a display of all the details of each individual IR. So this is going to have the question, when the IR is active, the priority, the status, and then some information about who created it and when. And then we have to the right, we also have the status. Maybe we have some pending IRs that haven't been approved yet, those that are active, and then as well as some satisfied IRs year to date, which we'll take a look at here in a second. So to collect this IR information, I've just configured a simple geoform and I'll fill that out real quick. So maybe we have an incident number, and then we'll go ahead and create an IR for this. I'll copy and paste some information real quick. And we'll set a date range for when we want this IR to be active. We'll change the status. And we could enter an address or a lat long, but to save time, I'm just going to put a point here on the map. And then we'll submit this. So once submitted, my feature service is updated, and I can come over to the dashboard, and I can see that there is a new active IR. So in addition to the active IRs, I can go to those that have been satisfied and take a look at all the IRs that have been met year to date. So again, just like the active IRs, I can look through the list, and then as I click on each individual IR, the details are displayed. So this is just operations dashboard and Geoform, and how it can easily be configured to support IR management and communicating these intelligence requirement priorities throughout your organization. Back to you, Carl.
Okay, we talked to you about going through a series of poll questions as we go through each of these modules. And in just a minute, you're going to see come up a very simple question. It's just a yes or no. Take about 15 seconds. And we're curious if your agency, your unit is currently leveraging Geoform in any capacity. And again, as Rob mentioned, we just showed you a quick configurable way where IRs can be entered into a Geoform and then analyzed as that input is coming in real time through an operations dashboard. And again, not designed to replace something that you may have, but to augment either the spatial results, or again, if you don't have something, these are the types of configurable web maps, web apps that can be configured, built in a matter of hours, literally, instead of weeks, days, and months to create an app or to buy and deploy an app. Okay, we're going to go on now to the next module. Rob, back to you.
Okay, thanks, Carl. So now that we've discussed intelligence requirements and a couple of apps that we could use to support those workflows, let's talk about requests for information. So our IRs define the intel unit support to the command, and requests for information, or RFIs, drive support to the field and help collaboration with your organization's mission partners. Some of the things that would be interesting, or you could ask yourself to kind of give you an idea where you are with RFIs. So right now, how many RFIs are you working on? How many have you satisfied this week, this past month, year to date? And does your intel soup and your management, do they know this information? If not, you may want to enhance your RFI management process. Tracking the intel shop's RFI workload through emails or spreadsheets worked 10 years ago, but we can do better than that now with technology. So again, we're going to take a look at a few apps that could be configured within Portal or ArcGIS Online. Here in this example, we're going to look at Survey 123, Operations Dashboard again, and then the Crowdsource Manager app, which can aid with the creation, the assignment, and the process of managing RFIs. So starting with Survey 123, you can just enter the subject for your RFI, which we're just going to put some test information in here real quick. Your suspense date and time. We'll provide a justification for this particular RFI. We have a drop down of the different resources that the requester can ask for. Let's go. If classification is needed, that can be selected as well. and then that's today's date and time. If location is relevant, that can be selected, and then you can put the unit, the type of unit from the drop-down, and as I fill out that RFI, that's going to update the feature service and present that RFI to the RFI manager. I've configured the Crowdsource Manager application with several web maps so that the RFI manager can receive these RFIs once they've been submitted and change their status, make changes to the RFI, and from beginning to end, manage all our RFIs for the Intel shop. So you can select new RFIs, and then you can look at RFIs that have been received in the organization. So let's take a look at this one we already have. And from here, the RFI manager can continue to review and make changes. And if needed, they could always send back the RFI for additional information. They can fill it in if it's already known. And then once they're satisfied with the RFI and it's gone from received and they want to go ahead and assign it to an analyst, they can go ahead and change the status to in process and hit save. And so once I save that RFI, it then leaves my queue and is now marked as in process with the others. And then as RFIs are completed, the RFI manager can come in, review, make sure everything's been completed, and then mark these RFIs as completed and save those off. And then all the completed RFIs will be in the repository. And again, we've used Operations Dashboard to communicate the metrics of these RFIs. So what this is going to allow me to do for either the RFI manager or for any of the Intel shops leadership, they can look at the different workload for the individual analysts. They can see how many RFIs have been completed. They can see how many are being processed. They can also click through the RFIs and get the information on each. And then they get the summary of how many RFIs are currently being supported. So this is pretty quick and simple. You don't want an overly complex system for this. You just fill out the form. You have an RFI manager, or maybe that's just another responsibility of your Intel soup that can review these RFIs and assign them to different analysts. And then the dashboard allows the RFI manager to understand the different workload of all the analysts, as well as communicate the current workload of the Intel shop and all the RFIs that are being addressed and supported by the analysts. And so that concludes the.
Okay, so for that module, and I know Rob and I both during our careers in government prior to Esri, and now while we're at Esri supporting government clients, we've experienced, you know, RFI processes that are in Excel, that are in Microsoft Word, that are in email, and that's fine and that works. But we've also experienced, you know, a lot of clients that have commercial off-the-shelf capabilities. The one value add here is, in addition to the standard, you know, I'll call it business intelligence that you can leverage from the collection of, you know, hundreds and hundreds of RFIs, when you actually spatially enable that data, in addition to seeing, you know, who's getting assigned an RFI and, you know, what topic is the the request for information on, you can actually see spatially, I mean, very simple, spatially where all this is occurring. So it's just an added dimension. And what we have here for this poll question is, what kind of RFI system does your agency currently deploy? So is there something in-house? That could be something that your IT folks built. It could be Excel. Do you have a third-party commercial RFI system in play at your agency, or does your agency just simply not track RFIs? And we'll give you guys about 15 more seconds to respond to that. And then we see the results here. Most are not tracking RFIs. Maybe it's just not part of the mission of your agency. And then of those that do, it looks like in-house systems by far are the dominant source there. So I'm going to turn it back over to Rob for our third module. And Rob, you may just want to check your audio. We're not hearing you.
For the third module, we're going to discuss collection operations. So having a well-managed IR and RFI system will improve the intel shop, but what about the management of collection assets? Not too long ago, I was on site with a customer on a Monday morning, and I overheard the following conversation. Why didn't you tell me you needed surveillance on that house? I was in the neighborhood all weekend watching a place down the street from there. I could have easily have watched both. Does that sound familiar to you? Unfortunately, it's conversations like this and just happen all too often. So in your organization, how many units are managing collection assets? Does your organization have a collection manager that oversees operations to reduce redundant collection? We deconflict tactical operations all the time, so why not intelligence collection as well? I was also talking with a small voice collection unit about a year ago and was surprised to hear that no logs of information were maintained for all their collection efforts. So when the staff rotates out from the unit, their institutional knowledge and experience goes right with them. There was no mechanism for the new staff to understand when and where assets had been deployed in the past, or to the degree of success they had with those assets in different locations. So they were ultimately just starting from scratch, which, as you can imagine, repeating, failures is common. So typically, not a function of the intel shop, but why not improve intelligence operations and efficiency by configuring a few apps to support collection teams? And in addition, just to bring efficiency, from the intel perspective, having an idea of where these assets are and just understanding, what's currently operational as well as what's available is absolutely key. So we're going to take a look at Web App Builder as well as Operations Dashboard and how they're just quickly configured to grab this information and allow the organization to have a better situational awareness and understanding of collection operations. So let me start with the Operations Dashboard real quick. So with the Operations Dashboard, which is just a quick, easy way to provide visual aids and communicate information and metrics to the staff, whether it be analysts, other collectors, management, and then the leadership. And so what we've done here is we've just created some generic collection assets that may be common for intelligence purposes. So these can be anything from, the request for call detail records from a cell phone, the gathering of forensics from a cellular device, deploying an intercept truck, looking or conducting a PIN register, a ping, a wiretap operation, where confidential informants may be deployed, or at least a general vicinity of where your confidential informants may be able to cover, request for imagery, and also getting imagery from satellite, and then sensors, motion and video, and then the deployment of surveillance teams. And then we have a few different widgets that just give a quick metric summary of some of those requests and what's active in the field, as well as on the map where those requests are taking place. Across the top, we can easily see, if we just want to look at the sensor video, these are just filters that are available. So we can just look at confidential informants. What else do we have? And so you get the point. You can easily just filter out and look at the individual collection efforts for the different assets. So if you have a collection manager or just different units, you could use Web App Builder to provide them with an interface to help with their planning and to capture where intelligence collection efforts are taking place. So we have a couple widgets that can help with this process. So with the Smart Editor widget, we've provided all of these features in a simple drop-down, different symbology. And so maybe there's a wiretap that's going to be conducted at a particular location, or maybe we just need aerial imagery that we need to order in a particular area. So once we determine that area, we can enter the case number. If there's an IR, let's go ahead and just throw that in there, or a RFI related to this collection effort, you could denote that. If you want to capture and serialize all the collection operations as well, the type of collection, if there's a cost associated with the collection. And if there's an asset ID, when it's going to begin, put today. At noon, the end time, put at 4 p.m. And then if it's satisfied or not, you can also add attachments if needed. And then once that's been submitted, the dashboard is updated, and we now have our new collection effort that's been captured and is now in the system and until it's satisfied. And so this is, again, how you can use just a couple applications within Portal or ArcGIS Online to capture the relevant information for collection operations and just improve efficiency across your organization. Back to you, Carl.
You know, sometimes we find ourselves in our client engagements with getting incredibly complicated incredibly quickly. And we tend to lose sight of how sometimes the simplest things can actually provide really robust, but maybe not traditional capabilities within your agency. And I think this is a great example. And I think, you know, what Rob showed, you know, we commonly refer to the term deconfliction with narcotics investigations. And oftentimes there is so much other intelligence collection occurring within an agency, but it's not shared with the bigger picture. And when you do the things that Rob just showed, as simple as identifying the location of your human intelligence assets, and then, you know, the location of your sensors, whatever your collection assets are out there, and sharing that all within one environment, it's quite likely that just by doing that, more questions and more investigative leads will arise. So for this poll question, again, very simple: is your agency engaged in deconflicting intelligence collection assets? Just a simple yes or no. And I'll give you guys about 15 more seconds to complete that, and we will show you the results. And that is pretty striking. So the vast majority, almost 90%, are not spatially enabling that data and deconflicting it against other sources of information, other collection assets. So hopefully that's an idea that you folks can begin engaging and exploring and seeing that's valuable for your agency. I'm going to turn it over back to Rob for our next module. Rob, over to you.
Hey, thanks, Carl. So we've gone over several applications for our IRs and RFIs and collection management for your different assets. But what I wanted to cover now are just some kind of different ways to use the enterprise technology to aid with your product management as well as data management. So the first thing I want to discuss are groups. Groups are just a built-in capability to your enterprise that allow you to create containers and environments for collecting maybe products. It could be data. Let's go ahead and look at my gang intelligence group. So I have my web map. I have a geoform that I've configured. I also have a web application to look at the individual gang profiles. And then of course I have the feature service that's powering all of this. So right now I've created this, but I want to go ahead and begin letting others in my organization. Let's go ahead and invite others. So now that I want to invite other people into this organization, I can go and select some of my coworkers, and I can send that invitation. Now I'm going to go ahead and select to add them without them having to confirm anything, and I'm going to add them to the group. And so now I have this great collaborative environment for others to review my products or to begin using the different web applications to support their work, maybe as intelligence analysts or collectors or as investigators or just command staff. So another capability right here within the groups are being able to create galleries. So going to the share function, I can create a web application from my group. And here, let's create a tag real quick. Let's test. And so instead of being in the group and being within the enterprise, the portal interface for the group, I can have a web application that could be shared with the organization or that provides a streamlined interface to look at all the contents within that group. So these could be my intelligence products, again, different applications for supporting intelligence or just data. And from in here, there's no editing. It's just use only and consume. One of the newer features, let me go back to the RFI. So with this feature service, so themes or categories is a new capability. So this is the item page for this particular service. And if you scroll down on the right-hand side, you see categories. So categories are set by your organization that allow you to create groups of content. So for RFIs, this is a management application. It's request for information. So I want to go ahead and tag it as that, and I can hit save. And so this is just another way where I can group information, whether it be services, web maps, applications, or maybe documents that I've added to my portal for others to find and support their efforts. Tags, which has been around since the beginning of Portal, but tags are a great way to help enable the search and the discovery of others that are using the portal. So I might want to put RFI in here. Maybe I want to type it out. So as I'm typing, I begin to type information. Because I've used this tag or someone else in the organization has used this tag before, it's available to me in the dropdown. And then let's just add intelligence as well. And then I can save. And now this is going to make it a lot easier for others to discover this service or maybe my other RFI applications that I've created. Probably one of my favorite changes and new enhancements. Let's let's see, is the ability to create lists. So if you go to the Data tab within one of your feature services and go over to Fields, you can look at the different fields. Let's go down. I believe it's Unit is what we want to. Yeah, we don't have a list for this yet. So we have the option to create a list. So for those of you that are intermediate or advanced users of the desktop software and have created feature classes and services in the past, in order to have that drop-down capability, you've had to create subtypes and domains within a geodatabase prior to publishing. This is fairly complex, but for our web-based users that don't want to use the desktop software, this ability to create a list is enabling that drop-down capability for those using this service. So we want to have the label of the unit, so maybe it's just the Intel shop. We'll just use the same code. And then I'll fill out one more. Then I'll hit save. And so now within the unit type, we have a drop-down, the coded value domain, or just a list, which is a much simpler term for others to understand, for those to choose from, which improves your data integrity, decreases typos and things like that, and just helps you collect better information across the organization. So these are just a few things. A couple of them are brand new to the enterprise environment that could aid in your data management as well as managing intelligence products and make it easier for people in the organization to find and leverage the information that you are creating. Back to you, Carl.
Okay, we've got time for questions. There is an online survey tool for folks that want to ask us questions. We only have one that has come in so far, and Rob, I think this one's best suited for you. We talked a little bit about being able to leverage existing databases and tables and Excel spreadsheets. So the question here is, if we have 3 years of RF data in Excel, how could we use the ArcGIS platform to leverage this? And then there's one other question after that also, after you take the first one.
Okay, that's a great question, and I would imagine for those that are managing, RFIs or any other type of information, IRs in a spreadsheet, you could do a few different things. If you have Esri maps for Office, add in within Excel, you could just publish that data directly from the Excel environment into your portal and begin using that feature service to configure these applications. You could take that spreadsheet and put it into the desktop environment, whether it be ArcMap or Pro, and do the same thing, publish that feature service. You could also just add the spreadsheet directly into Portal and create a service off the spreadsheet from there, and then that service becomes that foundation for those applications. So several different ways, depending on your comfort level of the technology and your access to different parts of the ArcGIS platform, that you can enable that spreadsheet and start creating these applications.
Okay, we've got another question, Rob, and it is about Crowdsource Manager. And it's maybe a tool that a lot of people aren't familiar with. Can you just explain a little bit more about what Crowdsource Manager is?
Sure. Is my screen still being shared, Carl?
Yes, it is, Rob.
Okay, excellent. Let me just use a search engine real quick, and I'll go to the Crowdsource Manager resource page. So here you can see the Crowdsource Manager. How I didn't use in today's example, which I believe that was for RFIs. Yes, for RFI management process, we use the Crowdsource Manager, which has absolutely nothing to do with crowdsource management. But that application and how it's designed, I just took the template and reconfigured it. And so here we can go to the Crowdsource Manager resource page. I can look at the requirements, what happened, what you get when you use this application. And then if I want to just kind of view it and look at it in a generic sense, I could do that as well. So that's a great resource. And also there's a get started page on how to use it. But I think more importantly, if you want to build one, let's go back to one of our groups real quick. So as we did those galleries earlier, let me scroll down real quick. So with the galleries earlier, Crowdsource Manager is a group or a gallery application. Let me find, here's a group. So as I go into a group and I go to share and create a web application, Crowdsource Manager is one of my options. So when I go to create this application, I can assign a category as we talked about earlier. So we'll just put intelligent management. Let's see what else. We'll leave it at that, and then I'll hit done. We'll give that a second. But what I want to show you, each of your web maps within your group are going to become a tab. So right here, the new IR form is a web map within my group. And so as I add different web maps, those will become individual categories that I can begin to interact with for this form. So this layout and the template and how it was designed is really great for taking information through a process. And if someone has to manage, whether it be IRs or even collection request or whatever it may be, anything that needs to be managed, tips and leads is another one that we've configured this application for. But it's just a great application for getting information from beginning to end through different stages of completion. Any more questions, Carl?
Yeah, we have one more question. I think it's a general question about Survey 123. If you could just maybe, Rob, explain in layman's terms exactly what Survey 123 is and the ability to have different questions, drop-down questions based on how the answers are occurring.
Okay, that's a really good question. Survey 123 is a unique application within the ArcGIS platform because not only is it a web application that can be shared with others to collect information, but it's also accessible from a mobile app. And it's all leveraged, and you can do that and leverage the same feature service behind the scenes. And also, when you're using Survey 123, there's a publishing environment that leverages Excel. And I don't want to try to pull one up while we're on a live webinar, but in doing so, within that Excel environment, you can design your survey to meet the needs, whether it be RFI or maybe something simpler with just a few different questions. And you can also have it be conditional. So depending on an answer for one of the questions within the survey, it can change the next question, the corresponding question, based off of the answer to the previous question. And so although I am not set up right now to demonstrate that exact functionality, but within that Excel configuration work environment, all those options are all noted for the individual configuring Survey 123 so that they can create these options and customize and publish a really clean, professional looking survey.
Okay, perfect. That is the last question that we have. We have one or two that we may elect just to respond to you folks back via email because they're a little bit more complex than how we may want to just explain it over this webinar over the phone. There is a online survey tool that you have access to answer a couple questions about this webinar, as well as to give us ideas for future webinars on the types of things that you guys would be interested in seeing, or you can always contact me directly, Carl Walter, cwalter@esri.com, for any comments, questions, or things that you would like to see in the future. And that concludes our webinar for today. Thank you for spending about 45 minutes with us, and we'll see you next time.